share it with everybody once we're done, just so they can share resources. So throughout, you have the ability to ask questions. Under the chat function, you can ask any question, and you can direct that question to a particular person. So if one of our experts says something genius and you need a little more help with that, you can text them directly. Or you can, you could text them your email address and say, hey, hit me this, or send me your email address, or you can send a message to everybody, a question for everybody, and we'll try to cover that as well. Just trying to navigate here. We've got all of our folks here. So with me, we have Melissa, who is part of Vineyard Worship, and she's helping me on the Zoom here just to make sure we've got all the management right. We might break it down to smaller groups if we need to, for size churches and needs. But and then my name's Mike O'Brien. I'm the director of the Vineyard School of Worship, and we've done a few sound labs, sound summits, we used to call them, and some of our instructors from those labs we have on here. And the hope here is to bring some encouragement and best practices for what we've been learning the past couple weeks in streaming our worship services. And some of us are already having to amend that again because we can't use our building. We're having to go into our homes. So maybe our awesome setup that we have at home, the conversation's already shifted, and now we need to figure out how to get good audio from a phone, things like that. So we're going to try to cover as much of this as we can. We're all still in learning mode, but the hope is also to kind of share some best practices with our leaders here, what we've learned the past couple weeks, and hopefully how we can continue to grow in this. So if you have questions about licensing, Kim Gentes is here. Kim oversees Vineyard School, worshipteam.com, which is an amazing resource. And he wrote something on LinkedIn, which was just brilliant. And Kim, if you want to actually post that as a chat, just that LinkedIn article, that covered so much. And it was the first one that I saw that actually was the right answer because he lives in this world. So he can help with that. If you're not sending money to CCLI or to one of these companies, then you might not be in the law. So that's the article he just posted, but I'll have him speak on that a little bit. Samantha Potter is a part of ProSound Web, and she's been doing about 17 of these calls a day, helping a lot of people. She's going to help us. Mitchell Maldonado's from Boise Vineyard, which has a great stream. Chris Ratcliff from Vineyard Church, Central Illinois. Douglas Law from the Keys Vineyard, which is now officially closed. You can't go to the Keys right now if you wanted to get down to the Florida Keys. And Samantha, Mitchell, Kent, Doug, I think I got everybody. Awesome. So Kim's article is there posted. As you guys want to, you can start posting your questions here. So we're going to start with Kim and cover some of the just your context, Kim, where you guys are at. Tell us what your church is experiencing in this. Jordan's there too. Jordan Gentes is with him. What you guys have been experiencing at Gilbert very quickly, how you're transitioning, and then Kim and Jordan, if you can tell us everything we need to know about being legal in this time and getting the right licenses, that would be great. So the floor is yours for a couple minutes, Kim and Jordan.
Initially with just a second here. Am I muted? Are you hearing me?
I hear you, Kim.
Okay. All right. Cool. I want to make sure I wasn't that. Okay. So basically, our church at Gilbert Vineyard, Jordan actually does most of the church work there related to streaming and stuff. So we've transitioned to everything to online, of course, as everybody else has, and We do. Jordan, you want to run through the?
So our Sunday service is streaming at 11 a.m. And then we have a Thursday worship session at 6 o'clock that we're doing from people's homes. We did it from my dad's home last week, and had some couple people come here, and we put on basically a home group that we streamed out from here. And then there's every morning at 8 o'clock there's a prayer time. People can log in on Zoom. That's the other thing we're doing.
Yeah. So trying to transition all those things, and they all have a video component and an audio component and somewhat of an interactive component as well, like this, right, with the chat.
Well, the prayer time does. The Sunday service and the Thursday night are just really for people to tune in.
Okay. So, yeah, so that's the context we're in, a local Vineyard church, not probably, I don't know what size is the Vineyard church that we normally have.
We're usually between 250 and 300.
Okay, so it's, that side of the church. And, enough resources that we could put together sort of a stream, that kind of thing. In terms of the legal stuff, the article I posted in the chat basically goes over it. One thing, in general that I wanted to mention is you can really take two approaches on this. You can get into the details in the article, but if you're going to stream and host a stream on your website and use a provider that provides video streaming, then you're responsible for the licensing of the material that you're streaming. Now, if you don't stream the worship part of it, the only people that you may have concern about licensing is the speaker, right? That's their content. They're streaming it across there. If they're an employee of a church, of course, there's oftentimes carte blanche with that information as far as licensing. I'm just talking about legally. I'm not talking about Christian ethics and all that stuff. I'm just saying the content that you stream, you have to know that you have licensing for it. So when it comes to music, that's the part that most people think of, we need to license this because this is copyrighted materials in many cases. If it's a hymn, of course it's not. You're able to do that without licensing, assuming it's a public domain hymn. Or your own music, of course, that you can give carte blanche licensing to your own churches, right, to let stream that stuff. When it comes to copyrighted stuff, that's the issue. So the article gets into that. But there's two solutions in general that you can look at. One is a paid solution, and I've listed three of them there. Two of them primarily for Protestant churches.
Hello.
Kinds of information or song catalogs for Protestant churches. There's one for Catholic churches, and then the second option is a free, as a sort of the ability to stream it for free on the platforms of large streaming services like Facebook or YouTube, because they've already got licensing covered from the standpoint of song content. What that means is something slightly different, though, that if you stream on those platforms directly, that you're giving up the right to collect any sort of money related to those streams, because they collect advertising money and then pay the royalties based on that stuff. So that's very general. And there are some paid solutions, the CCS and CCLI and one license. And then there are the free solution and Facebook that I talk about. So the details are all in the link there. But I'm glad to answer anybody's specific questions related to that. There are a lot of details in that article, but if you have any questions, I'm glad.
That's great. So if I have Planning Center online and I pay $50 a month for that, and I put all my songs in there and print them and sing them in my living room on a stream, I need more than that. Correct? That's not going to cover me. My Planning Center online is not going to cover me. My worshipteam.com subscription is not going to cover me to sing How Great Is Our God in my living room to my platform.
Even a basic CCLI license doesn't cover that. There's a specific streaming license you need if you're going to do it other than one of the free options mentioned.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's important that we talk with our leadership and make sure that we're covered there. And it aligns with the size of your church. So the larger your church, the more you're going to pay. And obviously, on most of those websites, they've created bigger, it's easier than ever to learn how to sign up and follow Kim's recommendation here. Jordan,
And
were you going to say something?
They're really quite cost effective. We've had the licensing. We've been streaming for about 5 years. And, for our size of church, it's $100 to $200 a year. It's very effective.
That's helpful. So $100 to $200 a year for a 200. You guys are probably clicking the 250 box or something like that.
In that range, yep.
Awesome. That's great. Real quickly, another thing we've run up to is playing bumper music. If you normally play bumper music in the house, which we probably are stopping doing at this point, but if you're playing just regular music in the background on the soundboard, Facebook will pick up on that, and I think they're muting the video or they're stopping the video. What are they doing when that happens?
I've had mine pulled down.
Okay.
Just the stream is cut. I've noticed if I play Vineyard worship stuff, it doesn't get cut right away. So I don't know if that's a plus or a minus. I don't know. I mean,
we need to get on that and go after some folks in this dark hour.
Get those bots.
So just be aware of that. So what we did the past Sunday is my friend on his looper pedal just played a cool landscape, and we just brought up that landscape 5 minutes before we went live. I'm sure different people are going to have different ways of doing this, but just as people are logging in, like many of you logged into this Zoom call a little early, people in your church will, they like logging in early, just making sure. So if you maybe have something loop or something that's not licensed, that's not going to get dinged, that could be helpful just to create a little landscape so it's not straight on to Becky leading worship or whatever. So anything else, Kim, that you can tell us about licensing that will be important?
Yeah, I just want to answer one of the questions that looks like it just came in from Pat Ginberg. I guess it says, even if you follow licensing, will Facebook flag you? That is actually an issue. When you have an intersection there, so you're doing the legal thing, and then you use a free service, like that actually, you don't need, you do one or the other. If you say, hey, I've got licensing, I bought my CCLI streaming, and then you go to post your stuff on YouTube doesn't care. Their licenses basically override because it's their platform. Anything that you do, they collect the money. Your streaming is paying for nothing at that point in terms of what your license is. Now, Facebook, the problem that you might have is that Facebook itself thinks that you might be in violation of something, stops it, rather than just pays the licensing on it. I've seen it happen both ways, where they are just allowing you to stream it, and and I think their licensing has changed in terms of how they apply it. But YouTube, is the free one most people use, I think, a lot of times, and it definitely you definitely don't need then the CCLI streaming license if you're using Facebook YouTube. So because they're already using their license, it's a little bit, that's why I mentioned there's a free and there's a paid solution. You really should look at going one way or the other. Now, when you post to Facebook, for example, but you're posting your stream from your custom service, like you're not directly streaming to Facebook, but you're embedding your post for a stream from some other service. Yeah. Then you still want that licensing. Facebook is then just sort of your distribution of that link. It's not the place that the stream is originating from. Then that's different. You do need licensing.
That's
there.
Good.
So,
that's good. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. It's super helpful. You can contact you guys through worshipteam.com. If you go there, you'll see Jordan's information, or you just see basic contact. You'll get a hold of either of those guys. And hey, lots of Life Pro tips are popping up here on the chat. So Mitchell just offered some suggestions. Kim's already put his article up in here. So this is brilliant stuff. You want to make sure you start copying and pasting this stuff. Feel free to contact any of our folks here directly. Samantha Potter, she's part of Pro Sound Web and helped us with our last sound lab here in Atlanta. She's brilliant. She's at one of the largest churches in the country, in the center of our country, and this is her 17th podcast today on, I don't know, and she's been busy. So she was like, yes, I would love to help you guys. So Samantha, tell us a little bit about your context, what problems you're solving this week, and some things you can tell us about audio and making things mo better.
Yeah. So my context is I do a lot of work for a very large church here. I'm from Kansas City. But I also do so much consulting and design work that I'm kind of everywhere. I'm never at one single church for particularly long. As I've been helping churches get ready and kind of this huge onslaught of moving online, one of the biggest lessons that I'm kind of learning that we should all just, regardless of situation, take away is that we shouldn't take people's frustrations personally. Everyone's kind of in a panic mode, and it feels like communication is coming to a complete standstill, which is the opposite of what needs to be happening right now. We no longer have, human contact day to day. So we're doing everything over video and emails and phone calls and texts, and it's really easy to miscommunicate. So I've had people snap or get short because they completely misunderstand something, or a solution wasn't right the first time, and just tensions are high, period. So I think we should all try to be extra grace-filled and extra patient kind of moving forward. So that's my biggest one. As we kind of talk more about how to improve and what we're doing now audio-wise, the question I'm seeing and the one I'm receiving most often is how to get a better mix into the stream. And so I've got just a couple points. I released a bonus episode of my podcast, Church Sound Podcast, on Monday, and it's like 22 minutes of just like information you need to know about streaming right now. So check that out if you'd like a more fleshed out version of what I'm about to say. So the first one is the stream isn't going to sound exactly like a mastered CD, and it's certainly not going to sound like it were happening like in a live room. There's a lot of compression happening, a lot of variables, and we can only try to compensate for this new medium. So number two, if you cannot have a dedicated board with dedicated inputs and with a dedicated person mixing it, the absolute next best thing is mixing everything on an aux. So yes, again, ideally you would want somebody having a complete split of their own inputs, mixing it with their own processing. That's with near field monitors and a mix of headphones and this whole production. That's the best way to do it. But that's not always an option. So for those who are still having bands meet in their sanctuary, you can kind of turn your board into a broadcast mix. When you, for instance, if you're mixing on an aux, what I do, and I just did this last weekend, was use sends on faders for that aux. So like, let's say I have aux bus, 9 and 10 are going to be my streaming outs. I will solo or cue those buses into my headphones so I can hear exactly what's going out. And then I'll use sends on faders for those two auxes so that when I'm moving the faders and I'm adjusting EQs, it's all happening to the aux. So I know exactly what's going on. So that's easier. And I've seen a lot of people trying to do the easy way to send audio to their stream is like off of Matrix or like a copy of the left-right. And if there is, for some reason, you're mixing and there's not a band there, that might be fine. But normally what you mix in a room is not going to sound good once you send it over the internet or somebody's putting on headphones. We're trying to put something that has a lot of space in a room and trying to cram it into a place where there is no space, if that kind of makes sense. So you can kind of compensate by doing a special mix just for stream, cannot stress that enough. And then we start using effects a little bit differently. So you're going to use a little bit more discernment when you're using effects, because we're just not going to have like room acoustics to help smudge some of the changes that we can normally hear. So you may find some good results if you dedicate a reverb to recreate the space specifically for the band. Like maybe a little bit of a long reverb or a lot of a short reverb, and send a little bit of all of your inputs to this reverb. We are dedicating this to recreating your sanctuary space. Normally, you wouldn't send all of your inputs to reverb. That would be intense and a lot of reverb, and it would be very muddy. But on here, we're going to take this really dry mix, this really sterile mix, and giving a little air, giving a little space, and creating a sense of room. So that's super important. And then you can use the rest of your effects as you might normally. So either to exaggerate some space, modulating effect, to thicken your vocals or instrumentation, whatever you might normally do. And then finally, I would put a limiter on the output that you're sending to your stream. This is super important because it's obviously when you have a whole band playing, there are lots of inputs. And all of these inputs are being summed together, and the signal going out is going to be a lot stronger than if one single input, one single person is talking. So if we keep that in mind, we'll drive the vocals a little bit hotter into the mix, and we'll put a limiter on the output to your stream. That way we can keep dynamics in control. So in live sound, we like some dynamics. Dynamics are good. But in broadcast and streaming, dynamics are evil. We need to make sure that the difference between the level in one person speaking and entire band playing is as minimal as possible. So you don't want to have people sitting there having to mess with their volume the entire time. That's not fun. And we certainly don't want to damage their ears or their equipment. So feel free to be a little heavy-handed with the limiter. It's hard to overdo that. So yeah, that's been my experience.
That's super helpful, Samantha. Going from a band or an ensemble of even 2 or 3 guitars or a smaller musical, how do we match the music output with the sermon output, which is just going to be one person speaking into their headset mic? With a lot of these streams, I'm hearing that the speaking is going down
probably significantly. Yeah, this comes down to almost just watching the meters, either in OBS or on your meters page on your board. Just making sure you're hitting within maybe I would say no more than 6 decibel difference, because it will start to be, I believe it's 10 decibels. To humans, it senses that that's either twice or half as loud, is around 10 decibel plus or minus. So if we stick with 6 or less, that will be a less of a difference to us. And we use a limiter. That way we're not crushing something and not the next thing. So that's super helpful. So here's the thing is today we are at a certain place with this scenario. If we fast forward 6 weeks from now, let's say the gatherings begin to happen again, streaming might be here to stay for your church. So some of the stuff that Samantha said that you don't know today, in 6 weeks, you might know some of that stuff, and you might come back to these conversations and go, oh, a broadcast mix. At Chris's place in Urbana, they've got a separate room with separate speakers and a separate mixer that is made for broadcasting. So, fast forward, we might be looking more into this, even more of us having separate broadcast mix or just getting a little more nerdy about it. Even though, today you might just be at iPhone in your living room. That's okay. But let's keep learning, because the church is going to change from here on out of how. Even if you have a digital board and you have an iPad, even sending somebody else out of the room to sit someplace else and be listening to or watching the feed and mixing that way is still a step above either just a phone in a room or a copy of the left-right. That's still a better option.
Yeah, so. I told my guy Sunday he was just mixing from the house because he had kind of good luck with it last week. And I said, get your iPod buds out, go into the lobby and listen, monitor in a way that, everyone's monitoring at home. That's really helpful. I added a couple links to Samantha's world. She's got some great podcasts and things that are good to send to your techs or to send to others in your church, just for them to start nerding out and getting a little more information on this. Chris, she mentioned Broadcast Studio. You guys are in a larger church, Central Illinois Vineyard. Tell us a little bit about your context and maybe some things you can help us out as we move forward here.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me here, Mike, and the rest of the gang. I see some of my favorite peeps like Bobby Spangler's on here, and Jeremy Eyes, you're on here too, dude. Good seeing you guys. Yeah. Yeah, so my context is we're at a larger church, like Mike said. We stream every service, which we have 3 services on the weekends. We have Saturday night at 6, Sunday at 9:15 and 11 o'clock. It takes about 15 volunteers on the production crew just to handle this beast of streaming live for us. We do have our own broadcast studio and our own broadcast audio room. So we have mission control. I call it kingdom control, right? Because we do manage the kingdom of God on earth, right? So yeah, laugh with me. So we stream all those. We also stream all of our other services too. So Holy Spirit Night is streamed live out of there. This has been a new ballgame for us. We do stream live, but we don't really do this pre-recorded stuff and put on simulated live broadcast because we're not allowed to be in the church or be out of our homes here in Illinois. So that's a new animal for us. One of the things that Mike, you asked me to think about is one thing or two things that over the last couple of weeks that we've learned new. It's always have a backup plan for your backup plan for your backup plan for your live stream plan. If you know what I mean. These are different times that we're all in right now that we're facing, having to be a church that is streaming live or pre-recorded and putting videos online for people to watch of your church services is put a huge strain on the servers for companies out there that you are using to ingest your video to your website and to other platforms like cell phones and iPads and so on and so forth. So you got to have patience with those people. That's one of the things Samantha said. We got to have grace. We got to have patience. So I'll just backtrack for a moment. So we started this project for us 8 years ago of streaming live. We had a Todd White conference at our church, and we literally grabbed our laptop and turned it around and used it as a webcam and set up in the booth. And it was the audio coming into the microphone on the laptop. And we had like 800 viewers, I think something like that, through a Vimeo account that we had set up. And that was for a whole week for this conference. So we said, hey, what do it look like to stream live? Well, our senior pastor said, hold up, before you stream live, we have multi-site campuses. And we were videoing on Tuesday to an empty room and sending that off to the campus to have at their church for a live service on a weekend. And he said, first of all, let's figure out how we're going to get live to the campuses. So we reached out to a vendor and we developed a DVR site. So we have a DVR platform that we use to get our live broadcast on the weekends to our multi-site campuses. But then we said, hey, if we're doing this, what would it cost to add one additional stream to stream live? So we did that basically at the exact same time. So we have been celebrating 7 years, roughly, of streaming live, and we've had our ups and downs. But we have an average of about 340 viewers. Those are unique viewers on the weekend streaming with us. That's our average. One of the things that I think is important when you're looking at streaming is looking at a larger platform for yourself to get started with. I'm not saying spend a lot of money on buying a lot of equipment. What I'm talking about is finding a provider to help you get your web service, your live broadcast or simulated live broadcast or pre-recorded broadcast out of your building into the world. That way it takes a lot of the pressure off of you on figuring out all the mechanical things on having to buy a server internally for yourself and having to host it, to kind of putting all the nuts and bolts onto somebody else's plate to manage for you. And those companies are fairly cheap. We use StreamSpot, and I think their average for their pro plan is like $198 a month. It may seem like a lot, but they offer a lot to you as an individual, as a church, to be able to store archive files, to edit files, so it doesn't take the horsepower of your computer to do post and pre-editing of your files. And again, they launch it for you to whatever application that people need out there, whether it's HTML5 or even Flash Player, which is still out right now until the end of the year. They take care of all that for you. They're watching your stream as you're broadcasting live, and if something goes down, their technicians are right there on the spot to fix things. And they've been a great help for us, especially during this time of all the extra strain that's on the networks and on the internets out there. Mike, anything else you want from me at the moment? Did I say too much?
That's great. You said StreamSpot is your, what do you call that kind of company? What is that?
So StreamSpot is, what are they really? Let's see. They specialize in automated content distribution for multi-platform delivery, if that makes sense.
Sure.
It's a cloud-based management system as well.
Okay. And you say for your big fat church, you're only paying $200 a month?
Well, yeah, but I started when this company started fresh. They were a brand new company there, and we have a DVR functionality they built for us, and we stream live too. So we have 2 streams, and we pay $198 a month. So StreamSpot, forgive me if all these people come knocking on your door wanting a low price.
Okay. So yeah, that's great to know. And it's a good point to say, maybe this is an investment we need to make to find a company that's in that intermediate spot that's going to help take care of some of the problems. Some of us obviously don't need that. We can post straight to Facebook, but it might be something to think about, especially like I said, as we ramp back into whatever the next reality is. The people's ability and appetite for literally what we're doing now is going to be at a whole different place.
Yeah, one more added thing. Even if we weren't in the circumstances that we're in right now, and you were just looking to live stream your church outside of this, COVID-19 virus, they say the analytics are that new people will not enter your church unless they find you on the website first on the internet, and they view you as a church first on the internet before they will actually enter the brick and mortar building. So that number is 80% right now. They're saying 80% of all new guests who come into your brick and mortar building have found you on the website, watch some sort of live stream about you before they've entered your building.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's really
some crazy
good.
Numbers.
Awesome. Well, you guys feel free to keep texting in your questions via the chat feature, or you can direct them directly to, you can click everybody, or you can click on direct people to ask questions. That's super helpful, Chris. Make sure you guys check out these people's their live streams as well, because I've learned a lot just by saying, hey, what are you doing to get that thing or that angle? A couple quick pro tips for everybody. We're on a Zoom call right now. Does my voice sound amazing? Does it sound better than Chris's did? So just messing with you. A couple quick tips, because we're going to be in this world, and if you're part of the audio bosses at your church, we can kind of lead the way. So I'm in my studio, but I've got a $19 light right there and a $19 light right there. Oh, there it is. So lighting, just in general, light. So on our stage at our church, we're running 70 people at our church. We bought some of these lights and we put them on the stage. In addition to the stage lighting, we just put them to light up the faces. It's just helpful. It's good. If it can remove an obstacle to the gospel and cost me $19, let's go. Let's do it. I'm game for that. So don't worry about, there's all kinds of lighting on Amazon if you can get it. There's also secondary suppliers like B&H is a great secondary supplier that they're shipping me lights tomorrow, whereas Amazon was telling me, 2 weeks. Like, we're getting a lot of problems. People are buying this stuff all over the place. So encourage you to buy it now. Buy stuff now if you can. Make those investments. I mean, the stock will resupply. So I've got 2 big lights here, and then here I've just got this Behringer interface, which is like $60. This is a UMC 204 guy, and it's basically so my microphone can talk to the computer. And just going forward, it might be good practice to have some of these things and start learning about some of these things. And it basically talks to my laptop via USB. So as we're leading things and becoming more advanced, it can just be helpful versus, it being back here and, hey, how's it going, everybody? And it being super dark and weird and strange, just do what you can to help remove obstacles and teach others to remove obstacles as well. And let me also say something really quickly about framing your shot. I'm not a photog dude at all, but take 3 seconds and readjust your camera You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it for a little bit. Just, you don't have to be super snobby about it, but move some lights around, get some extension cords. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's make it pleasing for people to watch what they're going to watch, and to bring it a little closer to what reality actually is. That's part of our job as well.
Production value to your Zoom call.
Well, I'm not just talking Zoom call, but I'm talking when you're setting up the cameras for, if you're going to be in your living room this week and last week you were at the church, just if you're going to be streaming it to 50 people, that's 50 people. Like, I
mean, yeah, you should care. You should care. And, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to make coffee. We don't have to do a lot of other things. So just, don't be afraid to work on some production value. Awesome. So let's jump over to Mr. Doug Laws. Doug's at the Keys Vineyard, and they've been doing a really cool stream. I was there a few weeks ago, and Doug's got like 55 cameras bouncing back and forth and has learned a lot in this process. Doug, tell us a little bit about your context and any tips or tricks or help you can give us.
Yeah, we've been live streaming for a few years down in the Keys now. We stream to a bunch of different platforms simultaneously, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Like Mike was saying, we have 6 cameras that I use, not quite 55, but I'm working on it. I'm a little bit away. And we use PTZ optics cameras, and those are cool because it really minimizes the amount of people you need in the room. I can be on my phone changing where the camera goes, and I can also control them with MIDI, and a lot of my stuff is automated with MIDI stuff from an Ableton Click. This time right now is kind of cool for me in the streaming world because we're still allowed to use our building in small numbers, like under 10 people. So our weekend services, we're doing a full band, and I'm still doing the full thing, just the room's empty. But we're going to do it, Saturday afternoon, and then we'll push it everywhere it goes for all of our service times. We do one Saturday night, 3 and Sunday morning. And then we do a Wednesday night thing that we also live stream, but we've been going with more of a living room feel. So I'm actually going to post the link. Let's see, I put it on this page here. Where's my text editor? To the YouTube video we did last night. It was my wife and I. It's just in our dining room. I got an acoustic guitar. She's got a violin. And you can check that out if you want. But I was using, let's see if this is up. And this is probably a hard piece of equipment to find. If you can see that, this little A10 mini switcher. This was $300, and it's great for this style of stuff. My brother-in-law had 3 Panasonic cameras going, and we were getting some cool stuff. And it's so small. I love how small it is. But definitely, if you can, pick one of those up. Everything's out of stock right now. But there are other video switchers. See, A10 Mini is amazing. It may be hard to find right now. Yes, it definitely is, which was why I was also going to talk about OBS, which was mentioned a little bit. I'll pull that up there. And hey, look, you can still see my face. So that's where you would go to download it. I use OBS as my primary streamer for the weekend stuff. And I set this up last night to do that. So you can just put a little video in. We have this. I put my webcam in there. I've got Pro Presenter running NDI right now, and that's what's overlaying the lyrics. So I can press a space bar, and you can see that. As long as you're licensed, then you're good, right? So, but yeah, that's it. The thing we use to push, and Mike wanted me to talk about multicasting, is this service called Restream.io. It's going to be similar to StreamSpot. It's marketed more to gamers, but can you send a link to all the software? Yes. When I'm done blabbling on, I will put links to all this stuff for sure. I'm going to load up Restream here. And one of the reasons why I like Restream is it does everything really well. You can take a stream key from OBS here, right? So if we go, I like the nitty-gritty nerd setups, okay? Restream's right here in the menu, so it's super easy. That's hidden. That's going to be unique. So if you see it, please don't take mine. But you can come here, and if you go in your dashboard, you're basically going to take this stream key that pops up here, paste it into OBS, and then you can stream to YouTube and Facebook simultaneously, easily, and relatively affordably. I think Facebook, if you want to stream to a page, you need RTMP specifically for that. That's $15, but it lets you do YouTube for free. So for $15 a month, you can push one stream from OBS, which is open source software, to Facebook and YouTube live easily from one place. So that's a cool thing to have. And, you can change the shots there too. For our intro music, we just make it really quick in Ableton. And that's, if you can do that, that's the number one way to guarantee you won't get blocked by Facebook. But yeah, Restream.io is the website. I'll type that in for everybody. You can also check out OBS too. I use those. One more thing I wanted to mention, is everybody familiar with NDI? Maybe it's kind of hard to get polls. Okay, so let's say you're in OBS world, and I'll just see how quickly I can do this. You want to make sure your phone is connected to the same network as your computer running OBS, and then there's an NDI app. I think it's $10. It might be $20 now, and here, I'll put it so you can see me. Let me find it. And yeah, there's several. Let's do HX for now. And I'm going to go, you can see my OBS, right? So I've got my phone here. I'm going to click add a source. And this is a plugin you can download, and it's free to use in OBS. Source name, it's probably going to show my laptop. There's my phone. I'm going to hit OK. And then there's my phone. So now we can kind of see the laptop. That's wireless, right? So let's say there's my spouse. You and your spouse both have iPhones. You can get them both set up wirelessly, feed them into OBS. Hopefully you have an audio interface, and then you can kind of do a living room setup quick and easy, But yeah, those were my few things. And
that's amazing, Doug. I have no idea what you just did, but I'm going to watch all that.
Yeah. Any suggestions? Getting a couple, not restroom, haha. One of my favorite things about Restream.io is that our communications team is sending me pre-recorded event videos, and you can push them. Yeah. So Restream has a scheduler built in. Let's see. And I'll talk about the lyrics too, because I wanted to mention that. Restream's over here. This was another thing that we had to pay for, but this is how I'm pushing everything. We'll let it load. And see, I've got tonight's stream ready to go for 6:55 tonight. And when we do it Sunday, we're going to record Saturday, but I'll finish the video, I'll compress it, and then I can schedule an event. So put it here. I converted that down, which is why it's named that. And then you can pick out the time, and then you can make different services. And that scheduler feature, I think this was $50 a month. So you're looking at $65 a month with Restream to go to Facebook and YouTube simultaneously and push and do the simulated live, which is amazing. Cool. That's Sunday morning I was chilling in the pool answering comments on Facebook.
Yeah, that's super.
Church
that's super
2020.
helpful. So you guys, Doug schedules his date nights with Ableton. It's all MIDI. He's actually a bot right now. This is a bot talking to us. He's pre-programmed all of it. So that was bonkers. There's obviously many more layers to that. You guys connect with Doug. I put his stuff on there from his church in the Keys. And this is a larger church, but we're kind of all leveled out. we're all meeting at home and doing this at a whole new level. I want to go to Mitchell real quick because Mitch has got a bounce in here in a second. Mitch at Boise Vineyard, and give us a little context of what's going on. And I'd love for you to speak into engineering, acoustic guitars, and just getting a little more vibe, just what you've been learning through this process, Mitch.
Yeah, so ours was interesting because we had to pivot for the first time doing exclusively online. We've been streaming for a long time, for years before I was ever in Boise, but we pivoted to exclusively online Friday night at 9:00 last week. So between Friday night at 9 and Sunday at 10, we had to shift how we're doing our service. And the way we looked at it was like, normally we're creating the atmosphere in the room, and we're a larger church as well, maybe like 800 people. You're creating the atmosphere in the room, and the live stream is kind of looking in on that, versus we're trying to connect with people directly on the live stream. That looks a little different. So what we did is we actually scaled stuff back. I'm in the unique position of being both an audio guy and a video guy at my church. So I'm in charge of all audio and visual stuff. Visual, dude, Doug just killed it all, way smarter than me. And we have a couple remote cameras. We've done stuff like that, but we also, this week I've been working to just create camera stations that we can cut to. We have 6-7 cameras that we can do. But that way we don't need camera people. We just set up stations around our band, around our pastor, and then that's what we use to cut through. So we go real skeleton crew for that side. And then the audio side, like we were talking about, Samantha was just saying that doing it off an aux or something like that, or having a separate board. We've been through both those versions. We used to have a separate board, and then the engineers, we needed them in the band, so we had to get them in the band. And then we've done it off of an aux mix, which is what we normally do for our Sundays when we have people in the room. And then for us going exclusively live stream, I've actually shifted that. So I actually use the board just as a broadcast board. We have a fairly big room. I just turn off the mains. Nothing's coming out of the speakers. I set it up. We set up the band like normally we have electric guitar, drums, violin, full meal deal. Right now it's just an acoustic guitar, a monk drum, a keys player, and a vocalist or two. And we set them up just kind of in a smaller area, and they just listen to each other acoustically. There's no ears, there's no monitors. The keyboard player has a little bit of a wedge just so they can hear themselves, but we set it up real simple. And actually what I did is instead of using like 58s or any other microphones that we're using for normal vocals for when we're on stage, I'm using large diaphragm condensers and sticking them probably like at least this far away from them, because then it gets a lot more of a natural sound, especially with acoustic guitar players too. Depends on if you can get your acoustic guitar player to stay still. I put everybody on stools, so they just kind of stay in one spot. If you have a guitar player that wants to stand around and move around, a microphone might be a little bit hard. But I absolutely despise the sound of DI acoustic into like a live stream environment. When you're playing it in the room, it's totally different. But when you have a recording or a live stream with like an acoustic guitar, some of them sound good, most of them sound terrible. So I've loved to just put a microphone in front of it. And really, I just wanted to capture what it naturally sounds like. And so for me, like I am just at the board. I mix on headphones the whole time. I use monitors just if I don't want to keep my ears on all the time during the pastor's message or anything. We're not pre-recording right now. We can still meet with 10 people or less. And so we're still doing it live. But really the idea was just to like break it down, make it simple, capture it more naturally rather than, so a lot of times when you're hearing a live stream, if it's just coming off of a board, your lead singer is singing this close to the microphone, and we don't usually listen to people right in front of their mouths. We're listening to them, with a little bit of distance and a little bit of space. And so putting those microphones, whether you have large diaphragm condensers or even just adding a little space between the microphone and yourself, even with the normal 58, just kind of captures that a little bit more naturally. And when I'm mixing with headphones, I don't really have to worry about feedback in the room. I'm not kicking it through speakers and worrying about that. I'm mixing it only for that. So if I need to gain it up, I can gain it up. You'll get some more stuff around you. But yeah, so we've changed it to just do live stream. I've turned off everything, the board, like my main left and right, go to our video switcher, and that's what we do. And so we're running, even though we're a fairly big church and we have 6 or 7 cameras or whatever, I have a video switcher guy, a lyrics person, and me. And that's as far as media production, that's all we're doing. And then we got our pastor and our worship team, and that's it. So
that's great. Are you putting lyrics on the live stream?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you walk me through this? Because we're at a threshold now where we have an old Pro Presenter, we're like Pro Presenter 4 or something. And we're doing OSB or whatever it's called going into there. How do I get lyrics onto the stream?
So I haven't used the stuff that Doug has used. We use a TriCaster, which is kind of like a full meal deal, like broadcasting thing, like news stations use it and everything. And what we do is the lyrics come in as like an input on our video mixer. And we use what's called a key. So whether you're keying out the black or a specific color or whatever, we actually create ours with a like green bar on the bottom and then white lyrics on top to create a little separation for that. Usually when we've done it live, we have to put the lyrics on top because in our room, you just have to put lyrics on top and you can't have them on the bottom. Nobody's going to see them, which we've changed this, but we just in our system, I don't know, maybe somebody else has other recommendations for other systems, but we overlay the lyrics so you can combine two inputs and then key that so that you're only seeing that. But that's with like a full meal deal video mixer. I don't know if there's other options. Doug could probably have.
Yeah. So I think I showed you guys Pro Presenter has the newest one, 7, has an NDI plugin. The workaround for that, again, is going to be NDI. There's a program called Scan Converter. On Mac, it's super nice because you can have a specific program be a network thing, and then you can just pull it into OBS. The other cool thing about NDI is it sends alpha channel with it too. So you get that transparent thing without having to key and stuff. Yeah. So, definitely look at the NDI tools, and I'll put a link to those in the chat as well. But that's how I'm doing it. It's just Pro Presenter 7 has the NDI built in. In 6, you had to pay like $100 for it or something.
Yeah, I think is that part of the like multi-screen add-on? That
it's one of those modules.
Yeah, modules. That's what it is.
But in 7, they just gave you all of them. So I'm going to copy and paste it so you don't go to restroom.io. Thank you, Mitchell, for correcting me there. I need auto.
I don't know.
Really
I don't know what comes up, but
don't click it. It can't be good.
Doug seems to be more the video guy. I'm definitely more of the audio guy that has figured out some of the video stuff. They got the TriCaster at our church years before I got there, and so I have like slowly and surely figured things out. And so I am by no means an expert. This is just how we have ended up doing it for now. And it may change.
It's always changing.
In the chat room, I added a flow chart for streaming. And a church that has, in a smaller church that also had pre-existing equipment. So if you guys want to go and download that little flow chart, you guys can take a look at that. And if you need any help, let me know.
That's really good. Mitchell, thank you so much. That's super helpful.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, hit me up. I'm on Facebook. You guys can find me. I'm in Vineyard Worship stuff. I got to go actually set up for our weekend and stuff. So
that's great.
If you guys have any questions, I'd love to help out however I can.
Yeah, we've got extra time a lot of us have more time than we know what to do with. So messing around with a condenser microphone on the stage, this might be your time to find where you want to put live mics or, experiment. There's going to be a lot of really amazing things that come out of this because people are experimenting, people are learning and getting new tools. So,
yeah. And one question I saw on one of the groups the other day, maybe yesterday, was what are we using to mic up the room? Which I'm actually not miking up the room. I'm creating that space with some reverbs and stuff, and adding that space with the microphone actually helps with that. Usually when we do our live stream with people in the room, I have crowd mics, but in this kind of setting, I'm not even using any of that because that's...
You're not putting anything through the speaker system, so what is there to capture?
You're not getting that. There's no people. It's a huge room, and so you have this huge empty room that you have an acoustic guitar player and a vocalist. Like, it's nothing huge. Like, you're not filling the room with sound and trying to capture that. So I'm just doing that with different reverbs on the board. So
definitely use a room mic when we all come back in person.
Yes.
Like, that's fun to add into the stream only. Don't add that into the room, but yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Because then people will actually know when they're laughing at the pastor's jokes versus now when he says it to nobody. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good, man. If you guys don't see the chat feature and function, there's a lot of good stuff that's popping up here in the chat. And I once this goes to a video only, you won't be able to copy and paste it. So now's your chance to really copy and paste this stuff, starting with restroom.io. Restream. That's
Someone just asked something about Zoom, and I'll try to answer it as best I can, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Colleen asked, does anyone have any tips on using Zoom to live stream music without the sound getting distorted or muffled? Facebook Live and Instagram create a pretty natural sound, but Zoom is built to eliminate background noise. Is there a workaround? No, there's not. There might be some processing you can turn off, but it won't be much because Zoom's DSP is meant to let one, like it purposely limits a lot of things. It's super compressed, both dynamically and in size, to make streaming more easier and require less equipment and bandwidth on your internet. But beyond that, it might just sound, it's not going to sound great. So,
yeah, I did a songwriter thing with Zoom the other day, and we encouraged everybody when they were doing guitar to unplug from their computer and just use the computer, because these guys definitely reject, and you have double rejection. I'm curious, like I'm using this SM7 now through an interface that's going into my computer via USB. Is it hey baby, how do I sound now? Can you hear the guitar and the vocal?
Like,
is
yeah,
it
you
terrible?
can hear it. It's not terrible, but there's definitely points where something is distorting, probably the input. Like it's,
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Some churches are doing church like this, like Zoom. Like Melissa, didn't you say you guys did Fullerton did church with breakout rooms and this whole deal?
Yeah, and I think we're going to do another kind of like focus on that next week if anyone's interested. We've been doing our service via Zoom, and it's true, we haven't found the workaround for the sound, but the experience of worshiping with your community, we're a smaller community, 100, 150, and the experience of that is something unique in itself. And so our people have really cherished it, for a lack of another word. And so we tried, doing the whole USB direct box. We tried that, and there wasn't really a workaround. So we had a family who was, quarantining together in a smaller room, closer together, leading us last night actually. And it was great. It's not going to be perfect. It is over, Zoom, and it's over the internet, but there was something about the experience itself that was really special. And I actually found that guitars, they were playing and they were sensitive to one another, but the fact that there was kind of continuous playing, what we found with Zoom is there's like a gate, right? So it'll cut off the background noise, but with the continuous kind of strumming, even though there is the distortion happening, the continuous strumming kind of helped with that gate effect. So that was helpful. But we're still working with that, but our people have loved it. And so, and I can, talk about that all day, but I think we're going to do another one next week, kind of specific to Zoom church meetings,
Yeah. As the media, quote unquote, experts in our church, we can help, make suggestions. We can lead the way in practicing a Zoom call with 2 or 3 musicians, or, continue to try to solve problems and to remove obstacles, right? Encourage people, hey, get a little closer to the computer. We can't hear you. Or, just as we're in this digital world, just helping people through this. We're used to it. Like we kind of know some of the things that other people are just now getting into. But yeah, I'm super encouraged by the creative ways. And next week's going to be different than this week. And when churches start to gather and they say, hey, 50 cap, 50, I don't know if that could be a thing, that's going to be interesting, right? What's that going to be? We're going to be meeting in our youth rooms for 50 people and then whatever. So let's keep learning. Bobby, I've added Bobby Spangler as a co-host. If you want to chime in, Bobby, I'd like you to chime in a couple things. Let me say this. There's a little, and we're almost done. We'll wrap this up in the next few minutes. There's going to be pushback in the blogosphere of, hey, we didn't need worship anyway. We can do this without this, and all sorts of conversations are going to happen. Let me say this: that the mission of God, for us to be sent out on mission, whatever's on the other side of this, as people need to be sent out, and we're caring for each other digitally now. But once it changes, right, the church is commissioned to go and be sent out. That sending only happens best when we are worshiping people, when we worship God, when we attribute to Him what is His, and we say, God, you alone are unfailing. You alone deserve the worship. So all the missionaries, all the food bank people, they need to gather and they need to give God praise. We need to be together, represent the Trinity before we go out and do the work. So just keep that in mind as you make tweaks and make things better. Don't not make things better because people in the blogosphere are telling you something else, right? Like, keep pushing to make it better and know that God will redeem it, whatever context you're in. And for some of us, like Doug, you know how to hack the system and to use gamer software for work, and you might be totally lost. You might be like, dude, I have no idea where to start. Well, there are some like user-friendly, explain it to me like I'm five solutions. I'm curious if anybody has any, if any of you are using like a super, I know there's this one company that you can use like 3 or 4 iPhones and it just kind of works as a switcher.
It's called Sling Studio. We do have a copy of that for our youth department.
And it works. You guys are cool
great.
with it. Yeah. And is it kind of simple? I mean, it's super simple interface, simple, right?
Plug and play.
Awesome. Somebody put Switcher Studio. Is that what you just said? Switcher Studio?
No, Sling Studio.
Sling Studio. Yeah, somebody throw that up there. Sling Studio.
Doug?
Unmute yourself. Sorry, Doug.
Yeah, there's another, I think, different from Sling. It's called the Switcher Studio. I was playing around with it today, and it does kind of the same thing. It lets you have multiple iPhones into there, and you can put text and go there. So
does that come with an actual hardware component, which is actually a capturing device for captures everything?
It uses this, and it's using web stuff. The Sling Studio is a hardware encoder, so this is just using your iPad as that. So, in times like now, it might be a good idea to try the app solution because you might not be able to get an encoder,
and it's cheaper too.
It's gonna, I'm actually gonna help a church up the road install this probably in the next month or so because they're trying to, they're doing the phone only thing, and it's like we want more shots and better audio. I was like, okay, so with this you should be able to feed audio into an audio interface into this too, and it looks really fun. So Switcher Studio is a good one. And, if anybody wants any specific help, I can certainly help them. You can hook me up on Facebook, and I will do my best to guide you through. It's really, the restream part's simple, and I think that's going to make everybody's life a little easier if they're not already doing something like that,
Yeah. Hey, Bobby, would you chime in a little bit? Anything you've learned these past couple weeks? Audio things you've seen? I'll unmute you. You are officially unmuted. Oh, I thought I unmuted you. There we go. This is Bobby Spangler from Campbellsville, Kentucky.
Hey, everybody. Just real quick, there is a couple of settings that might help your audio in the Zoom thing. There's an advanced setting under audio in the preferences panel. You can disable some settings, and then there's a checkbox. I forget what the verbiage is behind it, but that disables a bunch of the Zoom's processing on your end, and that will help. You also want to uncheck if there's an automatic level thing that will battle against you sometimes. So unchecking that may also help. So those are things to get you out of the gate, maybe if you're using Zoom, and help with that stuff a little bit. This kind of one thing that comes to mind, if you've been thrown into this streaming thing and you're just new out of the gate here in the last 2 or 3 weeks, just because of the situation we have, I just want to encourage you, don't feel like you have to get your production like Bethel or Hillsong out of the gate. Represent your church, your house, in what you guys do, and don't try to cop what these other places are doing. Those places have mega budgets, and what they spend on just their streaming side is more than what most of our budgets are for the entire church year. There are big things there. I don't know if my computer just freaked out the audio. Hopefully you can still hear me. It was doing something weird on my end. Anyway, so, represent what you guys do, and be what you are. And, it's always good to reference after the fact. And there are places we can all take advantage of the capture. Facebook and YouTube will often archive for us, so you can go back and view your stream afterwards and kind of suss out, is the lighting good, or is there things we can adjust, and is the sound good, or are there things we can adjust. And if you don't have it in place, monitoring is really important for both your audio and your video. So for the audio, you at least want a good set of headphones if you don't have any other way to monitor, something like the Sony MDR, I think it's 7506, or the Audio Technica M50s, or I know Mike has a set of cans he really likes. Having a good neutral reference for you to monitor that audio as you're sending it out is very beneficial. Having a monitor that's showing you the levels and meter, like Samantha mentioned earlier, is really important. Just if you have to kind of go by Braille, so to speak, and just watch the meters, that's still really important and very beneficial to the receiving end. And then having some kind of video monitor so you can actually see what your cameras are seeing is really helpful as well. It will clue you in a lot on if there's shadows, lighting issues, those types of things. We went live for our first time just this past Sunday here in Campbellsville. Streaming is not something we've done. And part of the reason was, I think somebody had mentioned earlier that many people will view your church through the remote lens first. And we didn't want to do streaming unless it really represented what we were doing in-house here, and we didn't want to do it poorly. So we were kind of thrust over the threshold here with what's come to us here in the last few weeks. And we had bought some gear, a bunch of it's on back order, and we're waiting. And we are lucky enough, we have contact with someone at our local university. They had an entire streaming rig for their portable sports program that was sitting just in a closet not being used because all of their sports events got canceled for the rest of their year. So one of our church members used to work for the university, had really good relationship there. So they were very gracious in loaning that equipment to us until what we had ordered gets here. But kind of rabbit trail there a little bit. Mike, anything specific you want me to hit on?
No, that's really good. I think the pressure, it's the same, right? Keeping up with the big boys. I keep clicking on these, North Point. I haven't seen the Bethel one, if they even have one, but I'm sure it's just insane, or whatever, cameras from inside of the acoustic sound hole, like whatever. Like, I think you're right. Just not feeling that pressure of having to up it, right? But at the same way, just if you can move a light or add a light or remove an obstacle or solve a problem, let's do it. But let's not feel like we have to freak out. But play to our house, I think, is a really good word. So I'm going to leave this call on for like 10 more minutes. And if you have more questions, we can embed those questions here and make sure that you get an answer to them. Just super thankful for everybody. Thank you for my experts joining in and being a part, helping out. This was really good. I wasn't sure if what the need was, but I will convert this to a video and put it on the Vineyard Worship pages, and send this to your text. Like somebody else, there might be a spot in this video they needed to hear or see, or some links. Send this to your text, your pastors, and I did put a couple links to I found this really helpful when I use my iPhone as a video. I use a mic stand, and it's really adjustable. And those two peripheral things I posted there from Amazon have been really helpful for me. And if we move to our homes, right, the more we have to move to our homes, just getting good angles. And real quick, does anybody have an audio solution to getting killer audio into an iPhone, like lightning jack? What's the go-to answer to that right now?
I think an iRig, send from the board into like an iRig little setup. It plugs right into the iPhone.
Is there any way to get an X32 to talk to an iPhone? I know that's insane, but
like an XLR to like a TRRS cable, I think, without the iRig. I mean, so not that you can't talk to them, directly. You'll need a weird little cable at the very least. So
sure. Okay, iRig. Yep. Doug, were you going to say something?
Yeah, something like that. There's obviously audio interfaces. There's different ones. I think iRig's the most affordable, though, so I would definitely look at that one first.
And that's just a microphone, like a lav attached to the iPhone, right?
The one I saw earlier today was a square thing. It's got 2 1/4-inch ends, 2 1/4-inch ends. So you would take 2 outs from your console into that, and then it would go lightning cable into your iPad.
Yeah.
So that would be sort of the quickest way to do it. But yeah, you got to use an audio interface of some sort.
Yeah, I'm just seeing a lot of live things like in the pastor's living room. It's just way too ambient. It's like, dude, I can't hear what anybody's saying, and the music sounds really bad. I'm just curious if we have to get even more localized, what some of that stuff is. So any other B&H, Sweetwater, if Amazon doesn't have it. I did order something from Amazon that said it was going to take 3 weeks. It got here today. So it didn't take 3 weeks. If that means anything to anybody.
I placed an order this morning and it said it's going to be delivered Monday.
Okay.
I looked at the same product 2 days ago and it said it was going to get here a month from now.
Yeah.
So they're constantly shifting their times around.
Yeah. I think they're just guessing based on how many drivers they have versus how many packages. So who knows?
Okay.
Like they're just being considerate, giving you an estimate. It could be tomorrow, it could be a month from now.
Awesome. Well, if my instructors want to stick around, you can. If you guys got to go, that's fine. We'll just slowly let the Zoom call fade out. But we're officially done. Let me pray for us. And like I said, I'll keep this open for a little bit as you need to copy and paste stuff. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, we are once again telling you that we need you. We need your help. We need each other's help, God. We need all the wisdom you have for us in this moment. Thank you for tools to share your gospel, to communicate the most important story and message of all mankind, Lord. We ask that you would lead us, direct us, God. Give us your eyes to see what needs to be done from week to week. Lord, help us to be a non-anxious presence to those who are communicating, those who are leading worship, that we would, as lines of communication are just so different now, that you would help us to help others in this way, Lord, and protect our families, Lord. And we pray for a miracle for this infection, this virus, God, that you would provide healing, provide a way out, Lord. And we bless you. We thank you for all of these in our Vineyard community and beyond, Lord. Let your kingdom come. Amen. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being a part. Appreciate you. It's good to see so many cool faces.
So, Doug, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that NDI. I was looking actually this morning into that a little bit because at our church we're using one camera. We're wanting to get a second camera to add to the mix, especially in this time. And so I saw Panasonic is actually releasing a camera here in a couple of days that has NDI baked into it. And so if that is what you're explaining, it sounds like I could have that camera up towards the stage and have it talk to my computer without running an HDMI and without having a capture card. Is that what you're saying?
You just need an Ethernet cable connected to the same network. That's the beautiful thing, you know. And if that Panasonic camera does PoE, then you just have one cable to one camera, right? So, and then how are you capturing that video? Are you streaming to like a software, or how are you streaming it?
Right now we have a setup that has a camera that we're sending to feed to the computer through a Blackmagic capture card. And then we're streaming through churchstreaming.tv, which then syndicates out to Facebook and YouTube and all that, as well as our main site.
Sure.
But I'm just kind of thinking out loud here for a second camera, especially, thinking forward beyond this crisis, when we have people in the sanctuary, having a camera that didn't need a cord to run to it, it'd be nice. We'd be able to put it in different angles, different places without disrupting things. And the camera itself does have wireless built into it. So would it even be possible to do it without an Ethernet port, or are you suggesting that's not good?
My experience with wireless stuff is it's always good until it doesn't work, and it's going to eventually not work, you know. But, you can always try it wireless, and then worst comes to worst, you just run an Ethernet cable to it. And on that note, like I showed you, there's the app on the phone too. With NDI, you could have that Panasonic camera, a phone, and your main camera. So now you've got 3 cameras for, $10 app and however much the Panasonic is. So with that and OBS, it really you can have as much as your network can handle. And there's 2 NDI apps now. There's an NDI HX, which sacrifices a little bit of quality for a smaller size stream to it. So it might have less jitter. Because one of the things we used it for at church practically was we do this big night before Thanksgiving meal, and we called it the pie cam, and we'd go through in the pie, and we'd show kids on the big screens with Snoopy and whatever, and it was just super convenient. Okay, there we go. I don't need anything else. So for convenience, that's killer. But I definitely think the Panasonic NDI straight into OBS is a great idea for now.
One thing we didn't talk about, which our church is having a serious issue with, is the bandwidth thing with internet. What can we document here on the recording? Because some of you guys are coming from small towns. Like, we had to downgrade our thing to 480p or whatever to get it to talk. Like, what are we learning about the internet?
Your bandwidth needs to be at least as twice as big as your stream. That's like a very low ball answer, but.
So you're talking about the end user, the viewer at home, what they need to have? Or
just like most churches, they bought their Comcast internet, 5 years ago, and their internet thingy, what do you call it? Their wireless
router. Yeah.
The router is 10 years old, but it's all been working fine. And because they haven't been streaming, nobody cares. So now all these churches are running into these problems. But explain it to me like I'm 5. Like, how do we? What do we need?
2 sides of this equation you're referring to. One is you as a church. What do you need infrastructure-wise in order to get your stream out to the world? Whether you're streaming inner definition or high def, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So on that note, for our smaller churches, our multi-site campuses, they're watching, like I said, on DVR, but it's essentially live back, and they're streaming it from the web into their sanctuary or their auditorium. They have to have a dedicated service for them. So that means all of their public Wi-Fi, all that stuff's going to be turned off so that all the bandwidth can be allocated for their stream.
That's good.
So our IT director set up, a TVC public for the Vineyard public, so public can have access, but it's limited. Then we have internal. Then we have check-in for checking computers for Kingdom Kids or for our kids department. But the internal side, they make sure all of their staff has no access to it at all. All their volunteers, nobody has access to that.
Wow.
Anyway, the biggest chunk of their bandwidth is dedicated for that. So that's streaming out. But, streaming back at home, the average user has to have at least 3 megabytes of bandwidth per second. That's for standard definition. And then you're increasing that to 5 megabytes per second for high def. And then from there, 4K and Ultra HD and all that stuff requires a lot more. But even then, it's if you're at home and you're getting these people saying, "Oh, I can't watch, it keeps buffering. What's going on with my internet? I can't see the church. What's going on?" Well, the problem might be that you have 5 kids in the house all trying to play video games or watching YouTube, and you're trying to watch church. So you have to tell your kids, everybody at home, like, shut everything down. As a parent, you have to control your home so that you can watch church. And that's the biggest issue we run into as a church. Like, we constantly get people in chair room saying, "I can't see the stream. I can hear you guys, but I can't see you." Or I can see the chat, but I can't see the video. Well, we have no control as a church. We have no control over the people at home at all. Okay. That's the worst case scenario. Like, we have no control. So we have to constantly jump on the chat rooms and kind of give them a little bit of, what is your internet speed and what's going on at your house, and like tell your kids to turn off the tablets for a moment. Oh, now I can see what's going on.
So as a consumer, if I'm the church secretary calling Comcast, I need, what would be a minimum up and download? 50 up and down? Like, what's the language?
Correct. 50 up and 50 down. That's your minimum. That's what we do at all of our campuses. As bare bones minimum of 50 up, 50 down. That way our IT department can then structure things out for them, for the church, and have a public Wi-Fi access, an internal, and check-in. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Bobby, you probably have the same thing down at your church too, right? We've talked about this multiple times. Any comments you got on that?
Well, we're not, our provider doesn't give us options for symmetrical. So we're stuck with having to buy a huge inbound package in order to get enough outbound stream.
Yeah.
So it's also situationally dependent. Most of the places that Chris is in, they do have larger crowds coming through, and so they do have to be heavy-handed in how they're managing their bandwidth for public consumption versus their needs for production. A lot of us are in much smaller churches where we may only have 100, 200 people max in there. And especially right now with not having public users even in the building, you can get away with things a little bit differently. Samantha, if you hadn't checked out her podcast from earlier that hit on a lot of this stuff, it's worth checking out. She talked about this a little bit. A rough number for a 720p stream outbound is you need roughly 4 megs of bandwidth for that. So that stream by itself is eating up 4 megs, and you want to have at least double the capacity for headroom for anything else on the network that's trying to talk there, so it doesn't choke down your stream. So given a singles outbound stream at 720, you'd need 8 meg outbound package. If you're doing multiple streams from internal, you need to add double that for every stream extra that you're doing from in-house. Now, if you're using something like Restream, you're only originating one stream in-house, and then they're doing the distribution for you, so you're not needing to have massive bandwidth. But what I've seen is kind of the outbound bare minimum for a church to function is 8 to 10 at the very bottom line, even for your more basic settings, and then you can scale it up quite a lot from there.
Yeah, that's helpful. That is super helpful. I don't know anything, but that all sounds really good. That all sounds really good, man. Great stuff there. Everybody's killing it on the chat here. I can't believe I forgot the internet stuff. Yeah, that's huge. And then, like, once you get the church thing solved, if we move to the pastor's house, right, and then or the worship leader's house, or we start streaming like that, it's going to be interesting how that works. But and then I guess is anybody, show of hands, already doing pre-recorded? Or is everybody still trying to, AJ, you're doing pre-recorded stuff? J-Law, pre-recorded. Imano. Oh, wow. Chris, you're pre-recorded.
Yeah, we're pre-recorded. We have been for the last 2 weeks.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, we are again tomorrow. We're recording tomorrow at the church, but it's pre-recorded.
Yeah. Interesting. So do you have are you going through and making the audio just amazing?
Make it sound like heaven on earth, baby.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Doug,
Thanks
do you think you'll ever move to pre-recorded, or are you already doing it?
During this time, we're doing pre-recorded stuff, and
Okay.
we're doing the simulated live. So we just do everything once, and then I put it all together in Final Cut, and then I push it to Restream, which sends it everywhere. But it looks like it's live. But we get to go to the pool Sunday morning and do church that way.
Wow. Wowzers.
One big
Cool.
advantage of the pre-recording is it takes somewhat out of the equation your outbound streaming, your outbound internet speed. So you're not worried about real time your internet keeping up with your stream, and you're also taking one half of the fail point away.
Yeah.
So this last Sunday, Facebook, for instance, their inbound capacity just got swamped at a certain time, and they just started dropping streams left and right, or streams got really garbled and compressed. So by capturing and pre-uploading that takes that fail point away, at least. So it could be wise in certain settings, at least, to use that to your advantage.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. Well, I think we'll shut this guy down and archive her at this point. Thank you guys so much for joining. Really appreciate everybody being a part, and let's continue to lift one another up and answer questions for each other and reach out, and maybe we'll do this again as our needs change and our questions change. So appreciate all you guys. Much love and peace.
Good luck, guys.
See ya.
Stay healthy.